Okay, I'm going to just take a minute just to look at all of you because this is my favorite place to be. I mean, I love what happens up here. I love listening to the people, but you guys, all of you are the energy here. So thank you for being here. And I get to look up there, and it is a view. There used to be a Lenore tree there, but that was a long time ago. You can tell how dated I am. So, so thank you. Did I turn it on? Did I forget? Hang on a second. No, it's on. Okay. This is going to be kind of off the cuff. When I was coming back from Ireland recently, the words "one world" came somewhere out of somewhere, and so I thought, wow, that'd make a good thing to talk about. So here I am. One world. I want you all to think about, just for a moment, just take a silent moment and think about what your world looks like, what that means to you. Okay, so one world. One world, we do live in one world, and we do love each other, hopefully. I mean, that's the goal. The other thing is that we also, that one world is, we're together in that one world, but we are also separate from each other in our spirit. And then we can't climb into somebody else's body. We can't be them. We can imitate them, but we can't really be them. So in just kind of thinking about, I'm going to tell a little history of my own world. I'll try to make it kind of short. And then if you have questions afterwards or would like to say something, we'll get you a microphone. I don't remember anything of my childhood younger than 3.5. My mother left. My dad was left with 4 children, older brother, myself, little brother. My sister was 6 weeks old. Found out later that my mother has paranoid schizophrenia. So that made more sense at the time. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me because I was too young. But living with my grandmother and my grandfather, my dad, and an aunt and an uncle who were still at home in a very small house, 1 bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen. And then we bought an old bus, and well, my dad did, and stripped it out, and that was the men's area. That was where all the masculinity was, out there in the bus. And so, and then my sister and I were kind of not very privileged to sleep with my Aunt Norma, because whoever caught cotton in the middle, because we had a rollaway bed, laid it out, and whoever got caught in the middle couldn't get out in the morning. And I absolutely hated that because I wanted to just like wiggle out as fast as I could, but my aunt was still asleep and she had her leg over both of us. And yeah, I was like, okay, just let me out. But anyway, it wasn't too long before my aunt left, and then my uncle was still at home. I'm kind of touching that. And my world was at the top of O'Brien Road. That's where I was raised, and down the extension, so back east of there. My uncle Frank had a 5-acre plot just where our driveway was. We were just off to the east a little bit, and then my uncle Leroy was over on O'Brien Road with 5 acres. So we had this, wonderful thing of family around. And then we also had on 3 sides state land. So we played our whole world at that time was in the woods or at home. And so in that 5-acre plot, or over to my uncles, both uncles, we all just kind of, roamed around. It could go over to, there was a sand pit on O'Brien Road, and we played there a lot too, which was a little ways away. But we didn't worry about it. It was all, family was there, and the world was pretty special. And then at 7, I started school down at Fairview, which was pretty special as well. Same teachers all 3 years, 2 grades to a room. And it was a world of just wonderful play. There were a few monsters in there, a few people that could have done a better job with their lives, let's put it that way. But that world was, when I went to school, my world expanded. I had more friends, I had more people I knew. So every iteration of your life is either expanding or contracting. So this depends on what happens. So flash forward to junior high school, we had to ride the bus into town. So there was another world expansion for me. Here was this, big amount of people, kids that I got to know, and in a place to go, had to ride the bus every day back and forth. And but unfortunately, something came up when I was in the 9th grade, and that was that my grandmother passed away. She was our world. And so, in came the grief, and came the contraction of my world. And we wound up living with an aunt and uncle, Uncle Leroy, who had 4 children of his own. So we were all older than them. So here I, he had, another house, another getting to know people, another just a world. But it got bigger. It got spread out because we had to move. And then the high school came, and of course that was another expansion. And then through my grades, I was still with my aunt and uncle and the rest of the family there. And then I decided my mother would write to us every once in a while. Sometimes we didn't understand what she was trying to say, due to her illness. And so, my dad was always there, but really not very communicative with us kids. I think he was afraid of us. I think he just was afraid of the children. So, and of course, we had to move in with Uncle Leroy and Aunt Wendy, so we didn't see my dad very much. He was an alcoholic. He'd been, since he pretty much came through the World War II. And so my mother contacted me and wanted to know if she could come up for my graduation. So that was another thing to think about. And I said, well, yeah. And she wanted me to come back to Oklahoma for the summer. So they came up. We drove back. My first time out in anything. We'd never been past the middle part of Washington State. I'd never seen the eastern half, and I thought it was on another planet, over the mountains and down into the Columbia Basin. And I was like, wow, this is like not what I know. It took us 3 days or 4 days to get to Oklahoma. And of course, then immediately found a job. I was going to school during the day for business college. And fast forward a couple of years, I met my husband. He worked across the street from me. And of course, and then along came the beautiful little redheaded Martian. And I call him a Martian because when he was born, he had these 2 big lumps on his head and a valley in between. And all the hair he had was this little mustache and back. So, and it was beautiful, bright red. So I was like, okay, family trait. And I was also given my first daily word. And most of you know that. My mother-in-law was my spiritual mentor. She was fantastic, and when we get together, we'd be doing this, and my husband would say, what do you guys have to talk about that much? Because he never really visited much with her. He'd be there, but he just really didn't have a whole lot to say. So that was another huge expansion for me, reading the daily word. I wasn't real steady at it because I was still pretty young. But oh my gosh, I was just like, every time I would really pick it up and read it, it just was, and of course, the talks with her kind of really sped that along. So then then came a time when, and the work with my husband, anything he would be working at, I usually was right there. So, I mean, I had no fear of trying anything, and he was always real encouraging of that part of our life. And so then son is growing. That's a huge, you have children, your world's going to get really big. You're going to meet other people. You're going to be kind of like herding them along and helping them out. And so he graduated in 1990. And at that point, things were a little rocky with my husband, but he always said, you gave me the first 20, I'll give you the next 20, which kind of turned out not to be true. But anyway, so we moved up here, and he'd never lived anywhere pretty much except Muskogee. And he did work off New Orleans for Shell Oil Company on a rig, but that was long before I met him. And so we get here, and things pretty quickly fall apart. and he's working for a company out of town, has gone a lot. And my son is graduated, so he's working with his dad. And I found this wonderful musical group, which is like, you know, the contraction of them being away all the time. And then I got into this group, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I didn't know they were going to travel. I just thought we were just going to do things, you know, locally. And it was huge. Making those trips, I always convinced myself, I've been to Mexico, of course, and to Canada, but I always thought I'd never go off the continental United States. You know, that was kind of my thought. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to Japan, and I got to go a week ahead of the cast. And that was a huge expansion for me. The people that I stayed with were absolutely wonderful. And we performed for kids in high schools and the government people. And so, yeah, it was that. And then the next trip, a few days, and I worked for a vet. Next few trips were, first off, Moscow, and we took 8 people there, 18 to Japan with the cast and the director. Another year later, it was a trip to Australia, and that was 48 people. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? You know, we're talking about moving 48 people from between 3 cities. It was the easiest one we had. And so it was, and I met some people in all of those places that were just wonderful people. I mean, they were just loving and wanted to help and just be, you know, be there for you. So, because we always stayed in host families. So it was wonderful to have that expansion. And so after that, I settled back at home. Didn't do any more trips, but with the group, but found a job with Healthy Families. And I worked for them for about 7 years. And then I had a job at the casino, which is another world in itself. But I was an accounting person, so I was upstairs. And I only went downstairs if I needed to run a report or something. So my world was kind of around my job, mostly. And my trips back to Oklahoma, I would make sure all my vacations went there. I went there. So I still get to see my family, my son. And then after he married, him and his wonderful wife and granddaughter. So I had an instant granddaughter. So all through that, it was, when I came to town in 1990, I was coming in from Sequim, where my brother lived, because we were staying there. And I was coming down, and I got to the light, and I look over, and here's the sign, Unity in the Olympics. It was up on the highway, and yeah, and it was just right there, and I'd never known there was a Unity church here. So, and I'd only had really my experience with the Daily Word and my mother-in-law, you know, to kind of go by. So immediately, when they found out I was an accounting person, guess what? I'm the accountant in the group. And anyway, so, and then that's gone on since 1990. This has been a world of expansion for me. Absolutely fabulous. And then comes the last 2 years, kind of. And my son passed away on February the 3rd of last year. Things kind of closed down for a while. But you know what? I realized that because my world of spirituality had expanded, it was it still grieved, but it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be because of my own belief system, which I, you know, garnered over the years. And so, I had a very sweet, because he was a very sweet man, he left me some inheritance. And so I got to put together 3 wonderful things that I always wanted to do. Ride on the railroad across to New York, take the Queen Mary to Southampton, make my way up to Ireland, Donegal County, where my family came from. And so here I am making this trip all by myself. And people kept saying, "Are you going by yourself?" Well, yeah. And especially my little brother. And there's a part of that I'll get back to in a minute, but he never wants me to get alone. He has to be like, "Okay, you go alone? No, you need somebody to go." I'm like, no, I don't. For 8 years, I did 6 months in Oklahoma and 6 months here after I retired, and I drove each one of those. except for when I was in the middle of changing cars and I had to fly down. So, and every time he would say, "Are you going by yourself? Are you going?" I was like, "Yes, I am," because that's just kind of what I do. And so I made it over to Donegal County. The train up to Liverpool, the big, very high-powered ferry over to Dublin, and then a bus up to Donegal, and then on to my first stay was Killybegs Harbor Town, right on the Atlantic Ocean. So it was a little harbor there, and it was. And I had to help people understand that I didn't come there to be a tourist. I came there to heal, and I came there to just. I'd always pictured myself going to Ireland, but it was about being there with the people. It was about meeting people. It was about talking to people. And a long time ago, what you were talking about, I had made the decision that I would always look up and I'd always look at people and I would smile and say hello. And if they didn't make any reply, it didn't matter because I was giving them my energy, my loving energy. So thank you for talking about your process today. It was wonderful. And so I got to hang out with the people at the bed and breakfast. I had 3 because I was in 3 different cities, but the first 2 on the last one were pretty long. The one in the middle was about 5 days, but every one of them were just the sweetest people. They loved to laugh. I got to listen to real Irish music, and they had some wonderful hotels with great restaurants. So my point to them was that I don't want to be the tourist. I don't want to be out and about all the time. And so it gave me that time to contemplate and breathe and heal. And with their laughter, it helped that helped even more because they're people who love to laugh and they love music. So that was good. So here we are. Here I am in Ireland, and I got to ride this Queen Mary, which has always been my dream. And then I got to fly home from Dublin first class, which I'd always thought about doing. So bless my son's heart for being so generous, because he certainly is that. And I tell this to people, and I don't know if you believe in angels or not. I do. My angel's been with me. First time I recognized it was when I was 7. And we had some catastrophic stuff going on, and it was right there. So I was coming back on the plane, and I always like a window seat. And of course, if you're in first class there in that particular plane, there's a big aisle between you and the person over there, and they're engrossed in the TV or whatever they're reading or whatever. So we were coming down into Chicago from Dublin, and the clouds had been pretty steady over the ocean, but you couldn't see much because you're so far up. So we were coming into Chicago, and I see these big fluffy clouds just below the plane, and they're going that way, we're going this way, and so it's going by pretty fast. But here comes this big fluffy cloud, and there on the cloud, laying on his side, his ankles crossed over, his head in his hand, and he's just grinning at me as he goes by. Oh my gosh, I was laughing just as I saw him coming to, as he was, and it went by pretty quickly, but it was like, oh my gosh. And I was laughing. I was glad then that they were over there, because I would have had to explain myself. And I don't think some people would have believed that, but for me, it was very real. And it was just, and my whole family, my dad's family, they have this quirky little grin that will just, make your heart melt. So, and he had that as well. So I got to see him. And then I went on from Chicago to Tulsa and saw my family there, and my Uncle Bill was not doing well. And 2 days after I got home, I knew it was happening, but my cousin called me and she let me know that he had left his body. So then it wasn't as bad a contraction in my, thing, because I just had been in this great big, thing. And when I was in Killybegs, Patricia, the bed and breakfast person, took me down, and I got to put my feet in the Atlantic Ocean. So I was there walking through the edge of the water. You could feel the cold water coming in, and warm water on top, cold water washing in. You realize how cold the Atlantic is. And that was just not even the worst of it, but it gets very cold the further out you go. And so I got back to my room, and I was just meditating about something, and it was just like this absolutely, I can't even, it was like this big beautiful cloud that was coming at me. It was like this expansion of my spirit, because I've been, thinking about all the classes I've taken over the years with Unity and the things I've done for myself and getting to meditate and all those things. And it's like, oh my gosh, this world is so big. You have your own world that you walk around in, but then you also have how many universes out there that belong to you as well, that are part of your world. And I just like got that whole message. It was just beautiful. So I got back home, and that feeling has stayed with me. It's just, yeah. So that's pretty much my talk. But I also would like to. So we're gonna do a meditation here, and get my head here. So I want everybody to close their eyes, take a deep breath, hold it for 4 counts, and then let it out, and just relax into the seat. And we're going to acknowledge the world. We're going to first of all, we're going to acknowledge this beautiful blue planet that we live on, and all the people that we know, or those that we even don't know. And we're going to just take a moment and just allow the light to shine from every person or being on this planet. And they call it the big blue marble for a reason, because from space, that's what it looks like. It's this gorgeous big blue marble. So I want you to picture it from that angle. And I want you to see the light grow as we learn to love more. The light grows. And it's like these big, beautiful spikes of light are just coming out of every part of our beautiful planet. And then we're going to take another step back, and we're going to let it recede out and out and out, till you can see the stars around you. The sun is right here. And you are the light. You are the light of the world. And it is one world, no matter how far you go. And it also is one world within inside you. You are the light of the world. Now just breathe. And let that picture be your picture, whatever that looks like. Now it's time to make your return trip in however much time you need. Just come back to the earth. See that beautiful light that you are as a part of this beautiful world. And now you're back in your community, and you're back in the church. We'll have just a few more moments of silence. And we'll give thanks for all that we have, no matter where we are, and whoever we're with. And now we'll come back out of our meditation. Blink your eyes and move your body around a little bit. Breathe. Always breathe. And if you'd like to have any comments, do we have a microphone for people to comment on? Is it over here? Okay. Anybody have any comments? you go.
Shar, I was just wondering if any time in your travels that you've ever encountered any problems, because I know that I find when I go into a place not expecting the good, that's what I get.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much what you found in your travels?
No, I found that even our troubles, even those things that come to us that we go, oh gosh, I don't want to do this. You learn from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn from that, and I welcome that knowledge. I welcome that time of, okay, this is, I've learned from this. It's time to go on, and then things just are like absolutely wonderful. I've met so many beautiful people in my travels.
Thanks so much for sharing your story. Very powerful today.
Thank you. Thank you.